We had simply arrived at that late life arrangement older women sometimes make without naming it. Coffee every other Thursday, a walk when the weather behaved, silence that did not need fixing. When I answered, she did not ask how I was. She said, "Evelyn, can you come sit with me this afternoon?" I asked, "What kind of sitting?" She gave a small, dry laugh. The kind that tells you the day has already gone wrong and now needs company. "My children are clearing out Howard's old house," she said. "They found the photographs and the note cards I used to keep with them. They want me there to tell them who is who." I did not answer right away. She spared me the trouble. "I know how that sounds," she said. "I would just rather not be the only person in the room who remembers the beginning of things." So I told her I would come. By the time I got there, the front hallway already had boxes stacked in it, not a mountain of them, just enough to tell you that whatever happened in the house next would not be about memory. It would be about pace. Peter opened the door. Mid-60s, kind face, tired mouth. The sort of man who has spent too long being useful and now no longer knows how to stand still inside a feeling. He looked relieved when he saw me. Not warmly relieved, practically relieved. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Mom said she wanted you here." That was better than being summoned as neutral furniture. Inside, the dining room table was covered with old photographs, greeting cards, envelopes, loose paper clips, 2 yellow legal pads, and a bundle of index cards tied with a dried-out rubber band. Marilyn sat at the head of the table. That was the first thing I noticed. Not because anyone had placed her there ceremonially, quite the opposite. They had put her at the head because it was the easiest place from which to ask her things. Laura stood to the right with a pencil tucked behind one ear and her phone face down near the coffee cup she had clearly forgotten to drink from. A younger woman, maybe a granddaughter, sat near a scanner and a laptop. Peter moved between the dining room and the kitchen with the distracted speed of someone trying to keep 6 practical problems from becoming 12. The room had a rhythm already. Ask, answer, write, scan, sort, keep going. Laura held up the first photograph. "Mom, who is this one?" Marilyn looked once and said, "Howard's cousin, Neil. Before the second marriage, your grandmother hated that suit." Laura wrote it down. Another picture. Another name. Another date corrected. Another person lifted back into place because Marilyn was still alive to do it. She was very good at it. Too good. There are kinds of usefulness that make a room grateful. There are other kinds that teach a room to stop noticing the person carrying them. This felt closer to the second kind. That is not the sort of thing I knew at once. I only felt something in the room sitting slightly off. Peter stepped around me with a roll of tape in one hand and said, "We have to finish the archive table today. The movers come Monday, and if we do not label this stuff now, it all gets mixed in with the general storage." Laura added, "I have to be back in Sacramento by Tuesday morning, and the scanner only works when Lily can watch it." She sounded brisk. Too brisk. Then she glanced at the time and pressed her lips together in a way that made me think she had probably been running on caffeine and obligation for days. So no, I did not look at Laura and think, cold daughter. I thought, tired daughter. That is not the same thing. A little later, Peter picked up a lake photograph with 4 people in it and asked, "Who is the little girl here?" Marilyn leaned forward. She adjusted her glasses. Then she said very softly, "That is me." The scanner stopped humming. Lily looked up. Peter blinked once and lowered the picture a little. Laura said, "Of course, I see it now." But she had not seen it before. That was the first true thing the room told on itself for. Not cruelty. Just erosion. The kind that comes when a person's function stays sharp after the rest of them begins fading at the edges in other people's minds. Marilyn did not weep. She did something smaller. She straightened a stack of Christmas cards that did not need straightening and said, a little too crisply, "Barbara wrote smaller than Beth. I've told you that for 20 years. Laura looked up at that. Hurt first, then patience, then the quick private discipline adult daughters use when they do not have time for the right argument. I know, she said. I am trying. That was the first moment Marilyn stopped feeling symbolic to me. And it was the first moment Laura did too. Peter's phone rang. He stepped outside to answer it. Lily went into the kitchen to find more sleeves for the photographs. Laura began making 3 new piles out of one old one. That was when she picked up the index cards. "What are these?" she asked. Marilyn said, "Put those down." Not loudly. Not gently, either. Laura looked at the top card. "If these go with the photographs, they should stay with the archive." Marilyn's face changed then. Not much. Just enough. A flinch would have been easier. A flinch you can comfort. This was something closer to offense. The offense of being translated badly. She looked at me then and said, "Evelyn, would you hold those for a second?" I crossed the room and took them from Laura's hand. They were lighter than I expected. The rubber band was almost powder where it bent. The top card read, "Do not seat him near the window if it's raining." The next said, "Call after church, never before." Another one, "Lemon cake, thin icing, no walnuts." Another, "Do not mention the dog first." I looked down at them, then back at Marilyn. Laura said, "I just thought they were useful." Marilyn gave a short breath that might have been a laugh if the day had been kinder. "That is exactly what they are," she said, "just not in the way you mean." Nobody moved, so I kept reading. On one card she had written the names of 3 cousins and, below them, the order they should be seated in if they all ended up at the same table. On another she had written who could still take a joke about money and who could not. On another she had written, "If Margaret says she doesn't need a ride, call anyway." They were not records. They were not sentimental in the lazy way people use that word. They were how one woman had kept the temperature of a family from swinging too far in any direction. That sort of labor leaves almost no paper trail, unless the woman doing it makes one herself. Laura said, more quietly now, "Mom, I did not know you kept all this." Marilyn looked at her daughter for a long moment. "No," she said, "you only knew it got done." That line could have sounded triumphant. It did not. It sounded tired. Peter came back in just in time to hear the silence after it. He looked from Laura to me to the cards in my hand and said, "What happened?" No one answered him immediately. That was good. A room should be allowed to know it has gone wrong before somebody names why. Finally, Marilyn said, "Those are not for your boxes." Peter frowned. "Then what are they for?" She pressed her fingertips to the edge of the table and looked down at the photographs. They were how I kept people from tiring each other out. That was it. No speech. No revelation music. Just a sentence worn smooth from private use. Laura sat down. Not dramatically. More like the strength went out of one decision and took the knees with it. She said, "I thought we were trying to preserve things." Marilyn answered, "You are." Then she nodded toward the cards in my hand. "You just thought the thing worth preserving was the information." Peter rubbed his forehead. Lily came back in with a packet of sleeves, saw all our faces, and set them quietly on the table without asking what she had missed. I was grateful to her for that. Young people do not always understand that restraint is a form of grace. Marilyn held out her hand, and I gave the cards back. She slipped them into her purse, not into the archive box, not into the keep pile. into her purse, beside the glasses case and hand cream and whatever else she had decided still belonged to her body before it belonged to the house. Laura said, almost under her breath, "Do you want to take those home?" Marilyn looked at her. Not wounded, not victorious, just done being mistaken. "Yes," she said, "I do." Peter pulled out a chair and sat down hard. He looked suddenly older than he had at the door. "Jesus," he said. That was not wisdom, just a son arriving late. Nobody said much after that. Laura turned her legal pad over so the blank side faced up. Peter asked Lily to stop scanning for the day. Someone suggested tea. Nobody moved to make it. Rooms do that sometimes. They reach the truth and then lose the use of their hands. When I got up to leave, Marilyn walked me to the door. Not because she was being polite, because she wanted 30 quiet seconds in which no one needed anything from her. At the hall table, she adjusted the strap of her purse, looked down once as if checking that the cards were really there, and said, "Thank you for holding them." I almost told her it was nothing. Then I stopped myself. "It wasn't nothing," I said. She looked at me then, and the look on her face told me she knew exactly how much that correction had cost me. There are women who spend half their lives mistaking reliance for love. I know because I used to be one of them. You can be called before everyone else, consulted first, trusted with what matters, and still be standing at the edge of the room where tenderness ought to be. That is a colder kind of loneliness than the kind people usually write about. The loneliest part is that it can sound so much like respect. Marilyn opened the front door. Outside, the late light had gone pale. A moving truck was parked 2 houses down. Somewhere nearby, a lawn sprinkler clicked in slow circles over somebody else's grass. Before she stepped out, she touched the purse once more and said, "Not to me exactly. They still think I wrote those because I was organized." Then she gave the smallest shake of her head. "No," she said. "I wrote them because people forget each other faster than they admit." I did not answer. Some sentences are improved by witness, not reply. I watched her walk to her car with the purse tucked close under her arm. Back in the dining room, they were still sorting the family. And maybe by then they had begun to understand that the most important thing on that table had never been the archive itself. It was the woman who had kept it from becoming meaningless while everyone else was busy living inside it.